Good and decent people of YouTube, welcome to Political Drain. My name is Bruce Lively. And no, you're not crazy. Last Wednesday, December 7th, News Nation held the fourth Republican primary presidential debate, or the televised audition for vice president. I mean, especially since the candidate leading in every poll, Orange Ebenezer, wasn't there. You know, on account of it being the holidays and all. And it was as uninteresting, unserious, delusional, and self-congratulatory as you would expect. Items of interest, Ramaswamy, believe it or not, he told the truth, actual truth, about our politicians being bought and paid for by rich donors and special interests, including Nikki Haley.
I want to go back, though, to Nikki Haley's comment from earlier that she is somehow not responding to the will of these donors. Nikki, you were bankrupt when you left the UN. After you left the UN, you became a military contractor. You actually started joining service on the board of Boeing, whose back you scratched for a very long time, and then gave foreign multinational speeches like Hillary Clinton is, and now you're a multimillionaire. That math does not add up. It adds up to the fact that you are corrupt. And when I said they were bought and paid for, I meant the Republican establishment, not the Democratic establishment. Now you have Reid Hoffman, the person who's effectively George Soros Jr., funding lawsuits across this country against Donald Trump to keep him off the ballot, funding left-wing causes. We discovered this week that he is one of Nikki Haley's largest supporters. Larry Fink, the king of the woke industrial complex, the ESG movement, the CEO of BlackRock, the most powerful company in the world, now supporting Nikki Haley. And to say that doesn't affect her is false.
So, in an unexpected moment of honesty, Ramaswamy calls out the corruptions of rich donors and special interests. Unfortunately, he never mentions that he, himself, gets major donations in the forms of business investments, speeches and seminars, and other underhanded, unaccountable methods from right-wing mega donors like Peter Thiel and Leonard Leo, from the Federalist Society. So, rich donors then? Check. Right. He also has made donations to his own campaign. That's good. Unfortunately, all his money comes from an investment company he started that makes billions solely from the pharmaceutical industry. So, one of the largest special interests in America then. Check. Gotcha, Ramaswamy. Let's see, what else happened? DeSantis, he still looks like someone drew a fake smile on one of Leatherface's favorite human skin masks.
I don't know how he would score on a test.
Come on to the
generation. You're 44 years old. 45.
Yeah. As always, they had the ceremonial pissing contest about who can take away the most rights from powerless and marginalized people. That's always a favorite.
So, Governor DeSantis, I'd like to start with you. You have pledged to send the military to the southern border on day one of your administration with orders to shoot, quote, stone cold dead anyone illegally entering with a backpack that you believe contains fentanyl. Critics have called this a shoot first, ask questions later policy that would amount to extrajudicial killing. You are a former military lawyer. Why do you think this idea of yours would be legal?
The drug cartels are invading our country and they are killing our citizens. The Al-Qaeda wasn't wearing a uniform. You'd see anyone walking down the street, they all had man dresses on.
Biden just gave temporary protective status to 500,000 Venezuelans. That's 500,000 Social Security cards. That's 500,000 driver's licenses. And I know from my time at the United Nations, the first thing they do is pick up the phone and said, we came over, come on over. And that's what sends more.
But there was one thing. There's one thing that's worth talking about, in my opinion, and that's that Chris Christie defiantly, bravely, as a matter of fact, crushing the ghost of Scrooge McComb simply by telling the truth about what he's done and what he said. Now, this isn't new. This has been like his whole campaign. But what was interesting, people, was as he kept doing it, the audience eventually started to agree with him. A wee bit.
I mean, look, he's made it very clear. There's no mystery to what he wants to do. He started off his campaign by saying, I am your retribution. 8 years ago, he said, I am your voice. This is an angry, bitter man who now wants to be back as president because he wants to exact retribution on anyone who has disagreed with him, anyone who has tried to hold him to account for his own conduct. And every one of these policies that he's talking about are about pursuing a plan of retribution. And yet, at the first debate, my three colleagues on this stage, when asked if he would be convicted of federal felonies, would they still support him, raised their hand, looked into the camera, and let everybody know that they would still support him even if convicted of federal felonies. Federal felonies, by the way. Federal felonies which involve our election process, federal felonies which involve the most sensitive of our governmental secrets, federal felonies where he instructed others to commit crimes, folks who are now agreeing to go to jail because of what they did in his name. So do I think he was kidding when he said he was a dictator? All you have to do is look at the history. And that's why failing to speak out against him, making excuses for him, pretending that somehow he's a victim, empowers him. You want to know why those poll numbers are where they are? Because folks like these three guys on the stage make it seem like his conduct is acceptable. Let me make it clear. His conduct is unacceptable. He's unfit. And be careful of what you're going to get. If you ever got another Donald Trump term, he's letting you know, I am your retribution. He will only be, Elizabeth, he will only be his own retribution. He doesn't care for the American people. It's Donald Trump first. It's Donald Trump first.
Thank you, Governor Christie. Governor DeSantis. Governor DeSantis. Thank you. Governor DeSantis.
Thank you, Governor.
Is he fit or isn't he? And this is the problem with my three colleagues. They're afraid to offend. And let me tell you something. If you're afraid to offend Donald Trump, then what are you going to do when you sit across from President Xi, you sit across from the Ayatollah, you sit across from Putin? You have to be willing to offend with the truth. Okay. And answer the question, fit or unfit? Fit or unfit? I want you all to kind of picture in your minds Election Day. You'll all be heading to the polls to vote. And that's something that Donald Trump will not be able to do because he will be convicted of felonies before then and his right to vote will be taken away. You know, look, here's the bottom line. You can boo about it all you like and continue to deny reality. But if we deny reality as a party, we're going to have 4 more years of Joe Biden. When my colleagues here raised their hands and said they would support him even if he was a convicted felon, the bigger problem with it is they were confirming the lies he's told to the American people. If you're too timid to take on Trump, believe me, others will see that timidity. Xi, Putin and the Ayatollah, the border crossers on the southern border, and the criminals in our streets. They'll sense that timidity and they'll take advantage of that failure of leadership. We need to get back to an old American idea that every person is responsible for their own conduct, even a president. I'll be the kind of president who has the humility that knows that you work for the people. It's not the other way around. I will earn your trust. I want to earn your vote.
Thank you.
We've had these three acting as if the race is between the 4 of us. The 5th guy, who doesn't have the guts to show up and stand here, he's the one who, as you just put it, is way ahead in the polls. And yet, I've got these 3 guys who are all seemingly to compete with, Voldemort, he who shall not be named. They don't want to talk about it. The fact is that when you go and you say the truth about somebody who is a dictator, a bully, who has taken shots at everybody, whether they've given him great service or not over time, who dares to disagree with him, then I understand why these 3 are timid to say anything about it. Maybe it's because they have future aspirations. Maybe those future aspirations are now, or maybe they're 4 years from now. But the fact of the matter is the truth needs to be told. And for us to go 17 minutes without discussing the guy who has all those gaudy numbers you talked about is ridiculous. I'm in this race because the truth needs to be spoken. He is unfit. This is a guy who just said this past week that he wants to use the Department of Justice to go after his enemies when he gets in there. I mean, the fact of the matter is, he is unfit to be president, and there is no bigger issue in this race, Megyn, than Donald Trump, and those numbers prove it.
Governor Christie.
And those numbers prove it.
Governor Christie, we will be addressing that issue.
So here's the takeaway, people. You, like me, may have thought that people who still back Trump after everything he's done and everything he said are simply unreachable. They think so differently from us and are so thoroughly entangled in the orange web of reality denial that there's nothing you can say or do to ever snap them out of it. Well, Chris Christie, God bless him, showed us that that's not necessarily true. In the face of what seemed like unbreakable idolization, he just kept telling the truth. So I've decided I'm going to do the same right here on this channel. Starting next week, we will be launching a 4-part series all about Project 2025. You may have heard of it. It's the plan set up by the worst players in politics with the purpose of literally ending American democracy as we know it. We're just gonna tell the truth without ceasing, no matter whose mind we are or aren't changing anymore. Just tell the truth. We're gonna talk about what the plan entails, its roots in fascism, the people behind it, and its inevitable consequences if we allow them to enact it by voting for their preferred dictator. You know who. Chris Christie inspired me. And those are words I never thought I'd say. I'll see you on the next one.